Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sweetcast. I'm Clint, and it's time now. My campaign has finished. Another campaign has closed, and I usually make a video that sort of caps everything, and it's usually titled something like "How a Total Nobody Raised $30,000 on a crowdfunded comic book," something like that. At this point, I can't call myself a nobody or a new, be a newbie to crowdfunding. This is my fourth campaign that I've managed, and it's my fifth campaign that I've directly been a part of in writing. And it's my, somewhere in the hundreds of campaigns that I've helped promote over the years. And so crowdfunding, I actually feel like at this point, I'm a veteran when it comes to comic books. When it comes to writing comic books, I still feel like I'm sort of a new guy. I have some body of work. However, when it comes to writing and getting publishing your things, I just think it takes a little bit more experience. So that's a whole other side note. So I don't know what I'm going to title this, but it's not going to be a total nobody because I think that gimmick has sort of worn off. But that's actually a pretty good thing. So what I want to show you here is with crowdfunding, this is the way that things can go potentially, and that is up. I don't think that Downcast was so much of a hit, though I believe that I believe a ton of people are going to love this series, and I believe even more so as the years go on. I think people are genuinely going to like this series. But the fact that I'm picking up more backers as time goes on, I don't think is a testament necessarily to this just being a diamond in the rough kind of story, though. I think it's amazing. I think it's more of a testament to this particular model of crowdfunding comic books. If you put this into perspective, let's see, this was in demand for, I think, a total of something like 8 months. And over 8 months period of time, so you had the main campaign, and then over 8 months, we ended up with 924 backers on the first Downcast book, which is outstanding, especially for a first campaign. It is amazing. Looking back, my mind is blown at how it did that well. It really is astounding. The next campaign, Downcast Volume 2, after a period of a year, almost exactly a year, 941 backers. So we picked up a few more backers on this campaign from the first one, albeit the initial number here after the first 30 days was higher on my first campaign, which is interesting. Does that matter? No, not really. You still end up reaching a lot of people. Now, if we put this into perspective and you think about mainstream comics out there, right? There's one big elephant in the room, and that is that even the worst indie books out there that have direct market distribution are still reaching tens of thousands of people. Imagine reaching tens of thousands of people. Obviously, you're not going to get that many people that are, paying crowdfunding prices or that understand, the value of getting in early and all that kind of stuff. You're not going to be able to do that through the direct market. But by sheer numbers, just reaching that many people is really getting a story out there, quite a bit. So I think that there's another phase to crowdfunding, and I do think that over time, these crowdfunded books do have the capability of getting out to very wide audiences. It's just going to be in small increments. So here, I think it goes without saying, I didn't on Downcast 2 just sell to people that backed on Downcast 1. I was actually selling to several people that, let's see if we can find out, were new readers, and they got Volume 1 and Volume 2. They're more than are just shown here on the front, but adding brand new readers the second time around. So technically I've sold, by now I've sold 2,000 copies, more than 2,000 of Volume 1, because I had to go back to reprint, and Volume 2, I'm not sure exactly where we're at numbers wise, but you can see that every campaign that you launch, it is somebody's first time being introduced to your series. They're new readers. And so how it works in the mainstream of comics, or how it used to work, is that any given issue, I know that Stan Lee was quoted as saying this, that every issue is somebody's first issue. So in every given issue, you got to have some kind of a summary, some kind of a way that it feels like comic book readers can jump in, understand what's happening very quickly, and get on with the story. When it comes to crowdfunding, it's actually very different. It's not that people are coming in and backing Downcast 2 or 3, and this is their first book. It's that this is their first introduction to the series. And because we're making the first book available here, that allows new readers to come in and they're buying books that have already sold. And so you'd think that on Downcast 1, this is our limit. We reached 924 people. But the truth is we've reached probably pretty close to 2,000 people based off of sales of Downcast 1 on the second campaign and the third campaign, especially for counting these reprint books. It's hard to tell for sure because some people are buying multiples, but you can see what I mean here. So when it snowballs, it's not that you're always gaining more readers, retaining the same readers you had and gaining more readers every time, though there is some of that. I think that's a big percentage actually. You're sort of churning in through people. So I've even had several people say that they backed Downcast 1. They didn't back Downcast 2. They came back to back Downcast 3. And so they're picking up volumes 2 and 3. You get my point. So the way that these crowdfunding comics actually snowball is very different from how comics through the direct market would snowball. So if we look at the numbers here, Downcast 3, at the end of the campaign, this campaign ended up being 50 days, which was a little bit different for me. I don't actually think that it matters all that much. I think as long as you're defining when you're beginning and when you're ending, it's helpful. Here I did the 30 days and then extend the campaign. I'm a firm believer that extending the campaign in the middle, all that does is actually bring some of those last day backers up so they back in the middle as opposed to the end of the campaign. So I think from now on, I'm actually just going to set my campaigns to anywhere between 40 to 60 days. And that's it. Like no extension. It is what it is. The longer your campaign's open, you will pick up more backers. If you're going in demand, clearly you're also going to be open longer and you will pick up more backers there as well. And so you can see here that I've already picked up 22 new backers from when the campaign ended last weekend or over the weekend. So this is, it's encouraging because I'm already getting so close to 900 backers. And so I think by the time that we go to print, by the time that I start shipping books, and probably before the year mark of this campaign, probably well before the year mark, I think hitting 900 backers is totally possible, if not even more, which is amazing. So what does this say? What does this say? I think that this underlines why I think it's really important to actually do a series. I know that for me personally, I want to read comic series because comics can just be, I don't know, there's something nice about a one shot, but a series is something epic. It's something that you can really get into. And it's one of the things I love about comics in general. And so it only makes sense to do a series, but in the crowdfunded format, you're actually pulling in people to read that work, new people to read the work that you've already spent so much time, you've spent years working on. They're going to come in and read that series. And so those first books that you've done have a longer lifespan. They're able to reach more people. And all it takes is possibly a reprint, but also just notifying people that, hey, this book exists. And if you read it, there's even more of a payoff because the series continues. And, might I add, I do think that this particular book is going to be a pretty big, massive payoff for people that read the first two because it's that good. Yeah, I'm really proud of this book. And all this, I've been talking about backer numbers. The dollar number is something else altogether. And that's because maybe I could call this a more perfect campaign. I think I said once in a video that this campaign, Downcast 3, is the perfect campaign. Now, that's a bit of hyperbole because I think next time I would still change things and adjust things. But what's interesting and of note here is that having a campaign and a book that literally anybody can buy into really is something. People knowing that this book is eventually going to be published through Alterna, and you can get a single issue, not a full volume, but a single issue for $2. And that's an option for people that don't want to spend the money. But people are still backing the crowdfunded books because of the prestige version, the superior print quality. I guess not that Alterna doesn't have great print quality and, newsprint. They're just different. Okay. They're different books. I think you understand what I mean. And so having the people understand that this is the pipeline of how the stories are going to be told. Having said that, people aren't just waiting for the Alterna books. I'm actually getting people coming in and backing the prestige versions, which is, I think, a big deal. So over time, how many readers am I going to reach? I don't know. That's going to be very difficult to tell, but it makes a lot of sense. Now, that's just for a beginner or readers that don't want to spend as much money, right? And if they wanted to buy the book, they're buying in for $20, which is still cheaper by $5, which is actually a pretty big percentage point. I cannot imagine if everyone paid an additional $5 per book more, I'd probably be really close to $50,000 here, is the reality. But the fact that you can get in for $20, again, that's just a lower price point, all the way up to people spending $75 on the collector's bundle, which is gone now. The add-ons, they're t-shirts that were sold all for Owen sold quite well, actually. And so it just, over the entirety of the campaign, the total dollar amount raised was higher per backer, even though people had the option of paying less money if you are really focusing on those Alterna books. So that's notable. That tells me that backers are here to support a campaign. They want you to build something from it. They want to be early adopters because they want to see where this goes, what you can make of it. And I think that's part of my commitment level to make something out of it rather than think of it as, just a one-time way to raise money real quick, Anyway, so there's that. I think that's notable. The add-ons were another difference for this campaign. I'll have to tell you how fulfillment goes because I imagine it's going to be a nightmare because every perk's going to be different. And so I'm not going to be able to just say, hey, these are all collector's bundles. Let's package up 300 boxes that look exactly the same. We'll slap labels on them. It's going to vary so differently depending on which box is going where. So I've got to figure out a good system for that. However, that did enable us to raise more money because of it. So first thing I expect critics to say is, Clint, you went from 97K. This has been now running for almost a year since we ran the campaign. We're working on the book. I cannot wait to get Fatal out to you. But people are going to say, critics are going to say, Clint, you're approaching $100,000 from Fatal, but Downcast 3 only raised 42. There are obvious differences. They're not the same book at all. Charlie Snogans is a miracle worker. I don't know what else to say. I love Nacho's art, but they're just not the same artists. They're just different people. So I think that goes without saying. And, this artwork goes without saying. So was this campaign Downcast 3 better than Fatal? I actually think that the way the campaign was set up was better. I think if Fatal was set up the way that Downcast 3 was, I think that this could be 110,000. I mean, it's hard to say. I'm just sort of guessing here, but I think that's entirely possible. Also having the benefit of additional books that people can buy because of a building series that's sort of snowballing. So Fatal could absolutely snowball and become a pretty big, massive selling series down the road, given some time. Absolutely. So again, that's of note. So the other component that I wanted to address here, this is Thrilling Comics issue number 1. This was not my campaign. My name's not on it. This is David Furr. He hired me to write a story in this, along with creators like Chuck Dixon, which was amazing to have my name in the same book as Chuck Dixon. I think this is shipping pretty soon. But when it came to this book, what's interesting is I did send out a note to my mailing list that this campaign was live, and I'm certain that I sent backers to this campaign to back it because they were interested in my book. However, the value in my name as a writer, it's just interesting to note how much weight does that hold versus the value of my name attached to producing, printing, shipping a book, running the campaign. What value does that add? And I don't know. I don't really have any conclusions there. But my point is, if I go out into the rest of the world and start writing for other publications somewhere, if I start looking for work for hire, not running campaigns, I'm still, relatively unknown when it comes to writing comic books. But I think that experience is probably pretty important to add to my resume, and it would actually feed into crowdfunded comics. So how do you snowball a campaign? How do you snowball a series and build up higher and higher and higher versus mainstream where you start off high and you drop lower and lower? I think it's because you're always referring to your body of work as a whole. You're reselling the same books, and any experience I gain somewhere else writing something else, I can also bring back to my crowdfunding and, make it part of the experience there, part of the selling points there. If I had said I was the writer of, such and such title, mainstream comic book industry, I think I would sell more comics. And I think by looking at most crowdfunded comic books, I think that that's pretty easy to say. Now, do you need that experience first before you crowdfund? Clearly not. There's so many people that are doing it and doing very well of it. But is it worth pursuing those other credits? I think it depends on what it is. I don't necessarily think so. I'm not really interested in writing for Marvel or DC, though I could see myself writing, something for somebody in the indie world that wants me to write something. No, that's not a secret message or anything. I've currently have nothing planned. I'm just doing my own stuff. But I am speculating here that it could be, part of the puzzle. Anyway, so let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. I think this is actually really encouraging to all the people that keep saying crowdfunding is dying. It's doing less and less. I have to disagree. I just don't think that's accurate with the numbers, with sales, with everything, the trajectory that we're seeing from most creators that are really putting in the work and building something, especially a series. I think that most of the numbers bear out that they're actually doing better than they were before. And you might not see it from one campaign to the next campaign. Like if we were to look from Downcast 1 to Downcast 2, I remember at the end of the initial campaign, critics were very critical of me because Downcast 2 had 668 backers to the 746 from the first campaign. So it looked like numbers were going down. But over time, because people expect in-demand periods and all that jazz, we actually ended up with more total backers over time. Downcast 3 clearly we're going to pass the total backer number. Unless something changes, the total dollar amount raised is less than 1,000 away from beating Downcast 2's total after a full year of being in demand. So this could happen easily in a couple weeks. To be generous, it could pass this number, and Downcast 3 will be the most highest grossing campaign that I have for Downcast. So, again, you have to take it with a grain of salt. One dip down in a campaign on one number point does not mean that you're dead in the water. It doesn't mean that things are shrinking or that you can't continue a series. You just have to see by how much is it dropping. Is there anything to really pay attention to? And overall, I would say my trajectory, if I were to plot this out, these 3 campaigns are showing upward growth in by any metric. They're going up. I'm not alone. So if you are crowdfunding, I think a series is a great idea. If you want to do a series, if that's something you really want to do, I think it's a fantastic idea. Especially if you're putting care into it and you're trying to make every issue amazing, make it better than the last one. I think a series is a fantastic idea, and I think that readers respond to it. But let me know what you think in the comments below about all this. Is there anything that you can learn from any of my notes here? And I don't know, maybe I'll talk about this in the future, but I really want to get back to trying to grow the YouTube channel and talking about things that interest me and that might interest you. Elsewhere, I'll stop talking about myself. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next video.